Future Warriors, episode 429. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human, Chris Saturn.
Those numbers keep getting bigger, Justin.
That numbers have a tendency to do that. In the grand scheme of numbers, 429 is not a lot of them.
I guess.
You know, just in the cosmic sense of numbers.
Have we done how many episodes has The Simpsons got?
Oh, I don't know. What are they on, like season 112 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
It started in 1927 and it's
There's
been running
750.
Oh,
So
wow.
We're almost halfway to number of episodes of The Simpsons, and our average episode is much longer than The Simpsons average
And
episode.
we got there faster than them. We've only been doing this for 8 years. Take that, Matt Groening. You suck. Guys going to be here at the end of this episode. So
Sorry to derail us so quickly. That's my bad.
Please stay tuned after the ending theme for our producer, Guy. My week. I have been reading the comic books. I've gotten back into comic books.
What? How would you compare them to the regular books?
They're much more visually enticing.
Oh,
because there are more than simply words on the page.
of course.
So that's nice because, man, reading is just hard, right? So I don't want to do that. I want to look at a picture. They came out with a new Conan comic book.
Based on Conan O'Brien?
Yeah, Conan O'Brien. The Savage Sword of Conan O'Brien is now
I'd read that.
now available on store shelves. Put out by Titan Comics, and I wanted to get that, but I don't have a comic store, and the closest one is 45 minutes away, and
Who's
I
the
hate
bad
them.
guy in it?
Right now, it's a bunch of zombie dudes,
Damn.
but it seems like they're working up to a big bad guy.
Oh, I hope it's Andy Richter.
Wouldn't that be great? He teams up with other late night hosts to kill Andy Richter. So I don't. The closest comic store to me is 45 minutes away, and I hate it. So really, it's like an hour away, and I was like, well, I can't keep up with a monthly comic, and I have to drive an hour every month to get it. That sucks. So I went and found a place where I can do a virtual pull list. And then to do that, they won't give you a list unless you have at least 10 titles. So I was like, well, let me see what else is out there. So I accrued 10 titles. And while that was going on, of those 10 titles was the new Ninja Turtles comics. And I started reading those, and I don't know what's going on. So now I'm backtracking through those, and that made me want to read the original Ninja Turtles comics. So now I'm tracking down the original volumes 1 and 2 of the Mirage Ninja Turtles comics and volume 3 of their Image comics. And in the meantime, I also started reading Jeff Smith's Bone, which I've had the 1-volume edition on my shelf for years and just never read it. I got it for like really cheap at a half price one day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just consuming huge amounts of comic books right now. I'm catching up on Ninja Turtles from the last like 6-7 years. I haven't been reading it, checking out the new Conan stuff, and just reading huge amounts of Ninja Turtles comics. There's so many of them now, Saturn.
Yeah.
I think at this point,
Is
Ninja
there more
Turtles...
than 4?
It's a lot more than 4.
Oh.
I think at this point, the IDW run of Ninja Turtles has more issues than the 4 original volumes combined. I mean, it has to by now, because
I
they're
meant
on
more than 4 turtles.
Oh yeah, there's 6 now.
Oh,
So I feel like that was a joking question, but there are 6
was.
turtles.
oh, weird.
Really, if you want to include all of the current Turtleverse, there's 10 turtles. Because in one of the timelines, there are 4 new turtles that are totally new and unrelated to the old ones. But back in primary Turtleverse timeline, there are 2 new turtles, Jenica and Venus. Although Venus is kind of loosely based on Venus de Milo from the Next Mutation live-action TV show. I told this story recently on a Talking Wizards, so for people that will have heard it twice, you're welcome. But just, yeah, lots and lots and lots of comics. I'm really enjoying Bone. I read through like half of it in a day, so I'm going to let that breathe for a couple days and then read some more.
Nice.
And it's just it's been nice. We got shelves. My wife and I went out and like covered a corner of our living room in shelves.
And your first thought was this has to be completely full today.
Yeah, I was like, there needs to be more stuff. Well, really what it is we had a bookshelf, but it was stacked multiple levels deep on each shelf. And then we also had to line we have a little lip above our windows in our house. So all of our windows had books above them. And it was just, we weren't reading anything because everything was so piled everywhere. And so having it all like easily presented and on these nice shelves, suddenly I'm like going back through all my old comic books and wanting new stuff and reading things.
Yeah.
And I also picked up a book called God is Disappointed in You.
Which is true. It's based on a true story about me.
I can't say too much because we have rules around here. But it's just a brass tacks, slightly tongue-in-cheek retelling of the entire Bible. And each book is condensed down to like 3 pages or less. And it is very funny and entertaining while also still staying true to the actual story of what occurs in that book. And so that's been a very entertaining read. And I'm trying to tread carefully here. It's funny. It's a funny book. It's comedic. It's enjoyable. Because some things, when just explained in plain English, sound real silly and funny, and you don't realize until they are presented in that way. Right. Also, kind of leaning back into Monster Hunter because it's just perpetually there and perpetually fun. So I got back into a little bit of Monster Hunter Rise on my Steam Deck, which is still just the most accessible Monster Hunter game they've ever made. It's just so easy to jump into and play like it's not this completely opaque and bizarre experience. It's almost like you can just play it like a regular old action RPG. And we have put together a small group of Monster Hunter people in the Discord. So if you want to play Monster Hunter with us, come join the Discord and hop on our Monster Hunter channel, and you can maybe get in some hunts with us. Because I would like to at least finish one Monster Hunter game ever, literally ever. And I'm in high rank, so hopefully I can push through to the end. It would be nice. Although now there's DLC, so the end is even farther away. What have you been doing, Saturn?
Man, I was trying to think of that, and I honestly have no idea. I have no idea what the last 2 weeks have been.
You're unemployed as of today. Yeah.
I finally the layoff got finalized, and so I'm supposed to get my severance next week. This last week we shut everything down and we closed up the building and everything, and it's been since then, I've had to work from home because there's nowhere to go. Yeah. But I also have nothing to do because there's already a new IT team that has taken over supporting all of my people.
Yeah.
So my only job was to get everything out of the building, and then everything was out of the building. And so this week, I just kind of been sitting around, reading, watching TV.
I only ever really got laid off at one job ever.
Yeah.
And it was the coffee shop I was working at, and I mean, I was like, they shut down, And I remember it was weird because when they shut down, they just shut the door and walked away and let the bank take it. Like there was no like breaking down of equipment, selling things. There was just like, okay, it's the last day. Lock the door, walk away, let it all default. Like that was their plan, and so
that's good.
It was because that slow process of dismantling this place you've worked in for years didn't have that. They just walked away and they were like, "Yeah, bank can have it." I don't know.
We kept finding some really old shit because they'd been in that building for 30 years, give or take, and we were finding shit from 30 years ago.
Oh wow!
And this week, or this coming week anyway, they've got the demolition crew coming in, which is still with the company that I worked for. Because they have to return the building back to the status that it was when we got it. Mm-hmm. Because we've installed some offices and we also expanded an office and stuff like that. All that has to be undone and put back the way that the building was when we got it. And that also includes taking all of the network lines out of all of the walls.
Why the fuck would they do that?
Well, because there were no network lines when we got the building.
Yeah, but the next tenant probably is going to want that.
Yeah, but they might want them on a different wall than where we had them, so we're just going to take them all out.
How wasteful.
Right. Yeah, and once we shut off all the server and networking equipment and all that shit, the only things we left in there was the stuff that belonged to the various ISPs, the fiber equipment and stuff like that was coming into the building. And we just left it there because they're supposed to come get it next month. And like 2 days later, the facilities guy from corporate that's in charge of this whole thing calls me. He's like, there's some guy trying to get into the building. I'm like, sorry, I can't get there. And he's like, well, no, he's from the internet provider. I'm like, okay, I don't care. Like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, well, did you turn off his equipment? It has to stay on. I'm like, why? It's not connected to anything. So they sent somebody up there with a key that could get into the building and turned on this one fiber connection coming into the building just so that it could be on with nothing connected to it.
You did it.
Yeah. I don't get business.
Well, let's do the news.
Yeah.
Unity has partially walked back their prior boneheaded move, but is still going to charge their per install fee for their new version of Unity for larger companies. But they're claiming that if people stay on their current version of Unity and do not update to the new version of Unity with the new features, then they'll be, okay.
But they also won't confirm that they will never change their TOS again.
Yeah.
So really, it's just a matter of time before they decide to roll that back out. And we know now that they apparently have the ability to track these things, even on the current versions. So,
yeah, the trust is lost. I think the industry, that's all it took was one single chip out of the bottom line of thousands of developers. And they said, nah, we're good.
Yeah, I got an email from one of the Kickstarters that I signed up for a couple of years ago, and they were like, we're using Unity. We've been using Unity this whole time. We are also seeing this whole disaster. We are too deep into this at this point. We can't change it, or we'll be pushing back 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to release it, but we're going to have to bump up the price, so don't expect it to sell well.
Mm-hmm.
So...
How nice.
Exciting.
How nice. Right? We were speculating because there's been a lot of discussion about this in the Discord, and I think where I landed is Unity just saw all these free-to-play mobile games raking in huge amounts of money with tons of installs, and that's the only thing I can think is that's all they thought about.
Right.
Because sometimes we forget how big the mobile market is compared to pretty much all the rest of the gaming market.
Yeah.
And I could see a CEO being like, sure, yeah, but 80% of our stuff is on mobile. So yeah, maybe the game industry would be a little bit upset, but mobile, that's the only excuse other than maybe someone intentionally trying to tank the company.
Even
for
then,
them to do this.
They said that for free-to-play applications that you would still have had to have paid the fee if there was even a possibility of upgrading in-app to the full version. So they were still going to just screw over little people in the mobile market.
But the whales in the mobile market was all they cared about. That's the only thing I can think is they were tunnel visioned on the big companies and seeing how they could nickel and dime them and didn't care who got nickeled and dimed along the way.
Yeah.
Yuji Horii says the Dragon Quest III HD 2D game is not canceled.
Yeah, I don't believe him. I'm sorry. He said that and Dragon Quest 12 are still in development and work is progressing. He has nothing to show for it. Please stay patient. They are surely working on it.
I really feel like I know that Dragon Quest is such a beloved franchise to Square Enix.
But they were people in Square Enix.
But they were recently talking about how they were refocusing kind of
on
their
AAA
projects
only.
on AAA stuff, and I have to feel like Dragon Quest got hit there.
Yeah, me too.
In some way, it really. And I don't think that they canned any products, but I think they pulled resources, maybe made teams smaller and reduced budgets, and now they're reeling like, how do we do this with what we have now in a project that we had already started and planned to be this size for this amount of time.
They are doing the opposite of that. 2 news stories down, you will see exactly what they are doing.
Oh, well, then we will see.
Yeah.
Documents inadvertently uploaded to a public-facing website reveal a lot of internal Microsoft drama, including a diskless Series X refresh for late next year. Emails showed talks about attempting to purchase Valve or Nintendo. We don't care. Whichever one.
They also Capcom.
Yeah.
And I think Sega was in there.
In the moon.
Yeah.
Doom 3, Dishonored 3, Oblivion, and Fallout 3 remasters were all listed in the leak, so there's some exciting news, I guess.
Yeah, that's something. That's some positive stuff. But man, it didn't look good. Because, a lot of it was the internal emails, and it wasn't like offensive or inappropriate emails, but it was very internal business email conversation. Anybody who's been on an internal business email chain knows exactly what that means. It means that the executive people are boasting about how great they are, how great the company is, and what huge moves it's going to make, whether or not they are realistic.
Right.
And these are not things they wanted people to see. And then they uploaded them to the public website for whatever Los Angeles court or whatever they were trying to upload to.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm not happy about the diskless Series X. That makes
I'm
me
not
unhappy.
either, because they like for people that are unclear, there weren't a model with a disk drive and a disk drive free model proposed. It was only diskless.
Yes.
And
yeah, and it looks like it's a minor refresh anyway. It just has a 2 terabyte storage and no disk drive. Otherwise, it is the Series X.
Cutting costs and pushing Game Pass. That's the plan. Square Enix says it will upgrade games to AAA status as it continues its focus on only AAA games. So Square Enix, what is the point of saying, we're only going to focus on these projects? Anyway, we're going to upgrade everything to become these projects.
Yeah.
So
So what they're doing is, instead of making a lower cost game, they're just going to pump enough budget into it until everything looks like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Isn't that going to fucking bone them?
Yeah.
Because not every game is going to have the sales numbers of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Thus, it should not have the budget of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
You don't understand what it is to be an executive. If you give every game that budget, then every game will meet those sales, right? That's how it works.
It's like they know that perpetual infinite growth is impossible. And so they're trying to work out a scenario where whenever it doesn't meet sales goals, they can go, well, we did everything we could. We gave them a massive budget and they still didn't make a hit. So it's not our fault.
Right.
That's the only thing. That's got to be what it's right?
Ridiculous.
Speaking of giant corpo shit, Microsoft / Activision Blizzard King merger has been approved by UK CMA. US FTC has now reopened its case against the merger. So it's just, out of the frying pan into the fryer.
It'll probably still clear, even with the FTC case open. They might end up getting slapped with something after the fact, but they've already gotten it more or less cleared by the U.S. government at this point.
Kirby and the Amazing Mirror added to Nintendo Switch Online.
That's on expansion, right? You can't play GBA on regular. I couldn't remember.
I believe that is correct.
All right.
I believe that is indeed the case. You do need the
expansion. Pay extra for Nintendo Switch Online, then you can play Kirby and the Amazing Mirror.
Yeah. An AMOLED 3DS clone was shown off at TGS.
I'm okay with 3DS clones. I think
I'm okay with any dual screen thing that could properly emulate DS and 3DS games. I mean, that's extremely exciting.
We need newer hardware for these things because as much as people love the 3DS, it is 10 plus years old now.
It came out 2012. Is that right?
I want to say it was 2012.
Yeah.
And so the older ones are already starting to show their age, I'm sure, and even the new 3DS model is more than 5 years old. Actually, I think it's 7 or 8 years old now. So it's also you're going to start seeing some get worn down, and fewer working models are going to be on the market. So we need clone hardware for these things.
This thing's looking pretty slick, and I think they're running a Pokemon game on it, but that can't be right.
It might just be video of it for all we know.
But yeah, very possibly. Very possibly. Or it's just not Pokemon, and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Embracer. Oh, more corpos. Embracer announces layoffs at Crystal Dynamics. Says they're open to divesting studios as they may have to close more business units. Is it because Embracer Group isn't making huge amounts of money, Saturn? Is that why they're doing this? Or is it because
possibly
they're not experiencing perpetual infinite growth?
Or maybe it's because they spent all the money on buying a bunch of studios right before during COVID, when everybody was starting to run out of money. And now those studios that they overpaid for aren't going to be able to make back what they spent on them.
Can't wait to see who's going to get to bail them out of their bad decisions. This will be so fun.
My fear, worst case scenario, is that they just become a second THQ, which is what they are. Yeah. Let's be fair.
Yeah, in a way.
Because THQ went under, and Nordic Games bought out the THQ name, then renamed themselves THQ Nordic, and then renamed themselves Embracer. So they are THQ at this point. So they might just go the way of THQ again, now that they've reacquired most of THQ's assets.
We'll see. And finally, Eartheon, a new shmup from Yuzo Koshiro, is coming to all modern platforms and Sega Genesis in 2024.
It looks pretty good.
That sounds fun. I'm in favor of this.
Right?
You know what it could use? A Final Fantasy VII remake level budget.
Oh, yeah. Then it would make all the sales.
Right. Because if it's a big budget, it has to make sales.
Exactly.
They spend a lot of money on it.
Like Forspoken.
I forgot about Forspoken.
So did Square Enix.
Yeah, clearly. Very clearly. Which brings us to our topic at hand. This week, we are talking Vampire Survivors.
Speaking of games with massive budgets that make massive sales.
For synopsis, it says, what if Castlevania was a shmup? And I don't know who wrote that, you or me, but someone did. Release info. Vampire Survivors released in early access on Steam December 2021, came out fully on Steam on October 20th, 2022, Xbox November 10th, 22, mobile December 8th, 22, and on Switch August 17th of 2023. Now,
I did not realize that so many of those were so close to each other. It felt like there was a gap between some of those.
You might be thinking, dear listener, isn't this a retro video games show? Wait a minute. This game isn't retro. It just came out in 2022, technically. But it's real fun.
And also, we've done new games before.
We have, and I think it's kind of weird territory, and it's one of those things where there are definitely some retro roots here in Vampire Survivors, even if they're not expressed necessarily as a retro game as far as gameplay goes.
And it's got old blocky graphics.
It's got those old blocky graphics that nobody wants, according to Sony executives. So,
I mean, what do you want? Executives.
As far as first encounters, I pretty regularly browse Steam charts, and I saw this game pop up on the trending charts.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, I started to see a little bit of buzz as it kind of picked up some steam, and so I picked it up to play it on my, at the time, newly acquired Steam Deck.
I thought you played it before you got your Steam Deck.
No, I got it and played it on my Steam Deck.
Because when did you get your Steam Deck?
It would have been like August 2021.
The Steam Deck wasn't out in August 2021, was it?
August 2022. Whenever it was. When did the Steam Deck come? Oh my God. How many years has it been? Is this what it's like to get old?
Hold on, February 22.
February 22. And I didn't get first,
maybe you did have it on your Steam Deck.
Whenever I got it, it was on, I was playing it on my Steam Deck.
No.
Because I got my Steam Deck and I was looking for like small indie games. This is when compatibility was good, but still not awesome on a lot of stuff. And there weren't a ton of verified games. And I remember I picked up Super Indie Carts and I was playing that. And then I picked up Vampire Survivors and was playing that.
Because I thought that you had already had Vampire Survivors when you got your Steam Deck, and there was just a big update for it when you got your Steam Deck, so you started playing it again.
Look, it's possible, Saturn. That we're talking about dead heat of the COVID times.
That's true. Time stopped making sense in there.
And so really 2020 to 2022 it's all the same. It's one big year. And it is the year of COVID-19.
The first time you mentioned the game on the show was back in May of 22. And I know that because that's when I bought the game. Because after hearing you talk about it, I was like, oh, I'll try that.
So if the deck came out February 22, I wasn't first wave, then that it's around the same time.
Yeah.
May of 20. I mean, that would have been summer 2022, and pretty sure I got my deck around that time. I don't know. You're the one. It was your deck. It was your reservation, so you would have to look it up. But either way, it became a hit for me on my Steam Deck. If I'd owned it before, then Steam Deck is where I played it.
Right.
I don't even think I have it installed on my desktop. So the first few times I jumped in, it seemed fun, but it just kind of didn't grab me as anything like too amazing. Mm-hmm. But like all good experiences, each subsequent playthrough, the game kind of dug its hooks deeper, and then it started getting weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is like almost a Frog Fractions type deal, you know, where you're playing and all of a sudden you're like, I don't think I'm playing the game that was sold to me when I started anymore.
Right.
To less of a dramatic degree than Frog Fractions, but still, it's that same kind of experience where you start to uncover stuff and realize things, and you're like, oh, this is a totally different kind of game than I thought it was.
Yes. Yeah, I had.
Go ahead.
I had tried it out because of your recommendation on the show, and I played one or two rounds of it, and was like, that was an interesting thing anyway. And it wasn't until it was released on Game Pass that I gave it another try and actually got anywhere in it. And once you get past that point where you kind of get to look past the curtain and see what's really going on back there, that's when it hooked me. And I started to really get deep into it.
And I'm sure we've talked about it, both of us, many, many times on the show across its various releases and expansion packs and stuff. I remember when I first talked about it on the show and I was trying to explain it to you. Mm-hmm. I do remember saying this because ever since then I've wondered what the fuck I meant by it. But I said, it's like a reverse shmup. That's what I said.
Huh.
And I don't know what that means. The only thing I can think is that it's kind of shmup-like.
Yeah.
But then you're kind of the big bad guy.
Yeah, you're the bullet hell. It's like a reverse bullet hell, whereas instead of you avoiding all the bullets, you're the one emanating all of
making all of the bullets. But then even in a shmup, you're the one making all the bullets. So I don't know what the fuck I meant. But I remember I said that, and then like a couple weeks later I remembered I said it, and ever since then, apparently May of 2022, I've been like, what the fuck did I mean? What does that even mean?
So I just
means nothing.
I looked up my Steam history, and it does say that the Steam Deck was delivered in April of 2022. So I guess you did have it before that. I just time has completely broken in my brain since then.
So I would have had it for a couple weeks, been looking for stuff to play on it, picked up VS, and been playing that. If I remember right, I was sick because I was playing it in my bedroom, and I don't play games in my bedroom.
Yeah, I think you'd caught COVID or something right around the time you got your Steam Deck.
Yeah, because I've had COVID twice. I don't know. It's possible. Let's talk development about Vampire Survivors, Saturn. VS was made by initially a single person, Luca Galante, also known as Ponkel.
Yeah.
Over the course of about a year, according to Galante, the game's addictive core gameplay loop used some of the same mechanics that he used in his previous job, programming games for gambling machines.
I believe him.
The second I hear that, I'm like, oh, yeah. No, yeah, that makes exact sense.
Yeah.
In interviews, he talked about how this informed the simplicity of the gameplay, which he intentionally designed such that it demanded very little from the player.
Right.
And there was also discussion of slot machines, how the game is like a slot machine where you give it minimal input, but a lot of output, a lot of noises, a lot of sounds, a lot of things happen.
Oh, yeah. And every time you pick up an item box, it even like jumps at you like a slot machine would.
And I so appreciate that this is a person that worked in the gambling industry, and for Vampire Survivors so easily could have applied not just the design aspects, but the business tactics of the gambling industry to this game, and it would have worked.
Yeah.
But chose not to. Magical Survival, which is a relatively successful mobile game in its own right. I think I remember checking, and on the Google Play Store, it had like 5 million downloads. It was the original inspiration for what would eventually become Vampire Survivors. And if you look at Magical Survival, you're like, oh yeah, no, that's VS. Like that's, it's that. It looks just like it.
I have not even heard of that one. So clearly it did not do as well.
I suspect that a lot of the downloads came after Vampire Survivors because, one, the games do look like each other. Even in screenshots, you're like, oh, yeah, that looks a lot like it. The game's aesthetic was chosen when Galante simply chose an asset pack that looked interesting, and it happened to be Castlevania themed. Because, again, it's important to keep in mind, this was unexpectedly successful.
Right.
This is just a thing he made as a goof over a year. I believe he was unemployed when the game came out, and then suddenly, in an interview I was reading, he was talking to a friend that was like, hey, you need to go get on the Steam charts right now. And he went and checked, and it was like up there with like Counter-Strike, and he was like, oh my God.
Well, they're basically the same game, though, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He does claim to be a fan of the series, but the Castlevania-inspired visuals were kind of just a casual choice made during development. It was just, hey, this asset pack looks Castlevania-y. That's neat. Let's see what that looks like. I believe the full budget for the game, everything he spent was $11,000.
Damn.
So,
which is still, a healthy amount of money.
Yeah, it's a,
but for a game that has sold as well as this.
Yes. Galante was also very concerned with community building up front when the game released on Steam Early Access, and cited in an interview his love of community interaction that grew from his time playing Ultima Online. Nice. And you really do feel this in like Vampire Survivors updates and stuff, where there's new stuff coming out all the time. He's always talking about it. He's always talking about what they're working on next, what's coming out next.
True.
Even recently in some interviews, he was saying that he has no idea what's next. So it's just this kind of community engagement that is, again, uncommon from a lot of game developers,
especially one that is sold as well as this.
Absolutely. He was able to pretty quickly quit his job in February of 2022 to work full time on the game.
Right.
And immediately began planning new content. At this time, he also hired several freelancers to speed things up, and also began working on a roadmap. And initially, the game used something called the Phaser engine. Mm-hmm. Before transitioning to, guess which one? Unity.
Oh, no.
The Unity engine for a more stable experience. Apparently,
so we get to expect another new engine soon.
I did read about the Phaser engine. I'm not a game developer, and my programming expertise is very limited. But it looks like kind of a more casual, sort of academic development-focused type of tool set, and less focused on something like, hey, you're going to make a big end product, right?
Right.
Mobile ports of Vampire Survivors became a priority when a huge amount of game clones of the game came out. So a lot of these clones came out, and they used the same asset packs.
Yep.
And so he was like, "Oh shit! Well, I guess we need to put the game on mobile." And so then the mobile game came out pretty quick.
Yeah.
And the Switch port seems very based on the mobile port, presumably the Android port. Although I don't know that definitively, but just looking at it, it visually looks like the mobile port.
Which, granted, the mobile port looks pretty close to
right.
The other ports,
it's not a very complex looking game.
Right.
Let's talk presentation.
Not very complex. You just said it.
No, it's a very simple game. The sprites themselves look like they were yanked out of an asset pack.
Right.
But where the game shines is kind of this barrage of colors and particle effects that slowly ramp up over the course of a playthrough. So what starts out as this very archaic, kind of low budget looking experience eventually devolves into like insane particle effects and laser beams filling the entire screen.
Now, I would also say that when you get to the newer characters that were added and also the DLC characters, it is clear that somebody made those. Yes. Those did not come from the asset pack. Those are custom created for the game, and you can tell they're much higher quality.
And also, they have additional skins for a lot of characters that are kind of, you can tell, like made for them. Nicer looking skins that you can apply, which came later.
Yeah.
So there are elements of the game that, it almost like, if you squint, it almost looks like this weird jump from like NES to Super Nintendo, kind of where it's like that sort of fidelity where you're like, oh, this is pretty pixely looking. You're like, oh, now it looks very nice. It's very nice looking sprite. I just
also
wrote,
you can play as a giant skeleton, which
you can.
That's important.
I just wrote there is music. So
I like the soundtrack. I mean, it's
I like it too.
It serves its purpose. It's not like some grand composition, but it is catchy and it is fun. And again, when you get to the DLC stuff, it feels like it's got more effort put into it.
It's fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Composers for the game listed are Daniela Zandara, Filippo Vigarelli, William Davies, and Lorenzo Floro. None of them have Wikipedia articles. None of them sound familiar to me. So I'm not sure who did what exactly.
Probably friends of the developer.
Very possibly. Or some of the freelancers he started hiring, because he pretty quickly hired some freelancers to help him out, thankfully.
Right. Yeah.
The game does have a story. Although you really wouldn't know it when you play the game, other than kind of some vague allusions to a vampire being in another castle, which is really just a Mario joke.
Right.
But on the itch.io release of the game, which is still the original release of the game, and it's considered the demo of Vampire Survivors, which is freely playable, anyone can go to itch and play it, it has the following story. The year and I'm reading verbatim. The year 2021, rural Italy, there lived an evil person named Visconte Draculo, whose many evil magics created a bad world filled with famine and suffering. It's now up to the members of the Belpais family to end his reign of terror and return good food to the table. I would like it to be clearly stated there are two writers for this game. Obviously, Luca Galante, probably the one that wrote this, but he also brought in James Stephanie Sterling to do additional writing, which I don't think we've seen the fruits of that writing labor yet.
It's in the bestiary.
Is that where it is?
Yes, and it was added in a little after the first DLC pack, or maybe just before the first DLC pack. But it's the entire monster list. When you look at all the descriptions, some of them are hilarious. Yeah. There's some great descriptions in there.
As far as gameplay, I think we have to define this game.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has been billed as a roguelike, a roguelite, a survival game, and about 6 other genres, including whatever the fuck a reverse shmup is, Justin. And realistically,
what dummy would call it that, though?
It doesn't really fit any of these categories, except maybe a more literal definition of the term survival game than is generally used. Because when you say survival game,
people think Minecraft.
Yeah, Minecraft or Don't Starve or something like where you're like in the woods surviving. And Vampire Survivors isn't that, but you do have to survive. But also Mario is a survival game by that metric, where Mario is supposed to survive through the level.
By my metrics, the game feels closer to Robotron than it does to any of those genres you've mentioned, because you're very much in the middle of a bunch of enemies and you are trying to survive.
I could see that for sure.
So it does feel very arcadey to me. It's always felt arcadey, but with auto fire mechanics, which is basically what it is.
And it feels very shmup adjacent. And I think, the only reason it doesn't quite fit that mold is, like Robotron, you are in charge of the scrolling, as you hit the edges of the screen, or really move the edges of the screen, because everything moves around your character. that's when the scrolling is introduced. But it definitely does feel, and this is part of why we're covering, part of why we've both enjoyed it so much, is it is very much an arcade game.
Yes.
Each time you go play a level, you play to the end of that level or until you die, and then you get a score, and then you start over, and basically like an arcade game. There's a little bit of perpetual stuff that we'll talk more about and some unlocks, but each run through of a level is its own encapsulated endeavor. Exactly. Very arcade-like.
Right.
So gameplay itself consists of avoiding being hit by enemies that kind of show up in waves based on time.
Yes.
While steering your auto-attacking character around to defeat them.
Yeah.
Defeated enemies will drop various gems that grant experience, which will cause you to level up. Upon level up, the player is presented with the game's first complication, which is a selection.
Is it a complication?
Yeah, it's a complication.
It's your only strategy.
It is a selection of items to upgrade or choose from. If you already have an item and something you already have is listed there, it'll be an upgrade. If you don't have it, it's a choice. The choices presented are random and consist of both weapons and accessory items that provide passive benefits.
But you have to unlock the available options.
Yes.
And at the very beginning, when you first start playing the game, you have very few choices, and it makes the game feel very simple.
And in that stage, you also start as Antonio, who's
one of the most boring characters.
Antonio Belpais. He starts with a whip. A lot of the starting weapons you get are the Santa water, which is the holy water, the axe, which is just like the Castlevania axe, the daggers. It feels very Castlevania themed.
Yeah.
And then that theme quickly kind of drops away as you are playing a dog that farts flowers later on in the game, where it gets
Bayonetta.
Weird as shit. Yeah. Some enemies also drop chests that will provide random upgrades to existing weapons or items that the player currently has equipped. If the weapon in the chest has been upgraded to its maximum level and has met its hidden evolution requirement, which we'll talk more about, then the chest will contain the evolved version of that weapon. So suddenly we're introducing more complications. There are chests that land. Depending on how you've played the game and upgraded your weapons, you can know, not definitively, but with a good chance that if a chest will or won't contain an evolved weapon. And the game tells you none of this.
Right, yeah, you just have to figure this out.
And this is how I played the game for a while, because when I was playing it, there really weren't any guides.
Right.
And
the wikis hadn't shown up yet.
Yeah, there wasn't the VS Wiki, which is a very good resource. And so I was just playing it, and then one day, thinking, again, I believe when I was playing, there was 4 levels, and that was it. Or maybe 3. I think there was 3 levels. It was to the dairy plant, and then they added more after I'd started playing. I think dairy plant was as much as there was. And so I was like, well, it's 3 levels. It's got these few select weapons. I've unlocked a couple things, but, whatever. And then I evolved the garlic, and I was like, well, wait a minute. Can everything evolve?
Yeah.
And it suddenly, this whole world opened up to me, this emergent moment. There are, before we get into characters, which is kind of the meat of this game because there's a huge amount of them.
Yes.
There are other items that can drop in the game that I want to talk about. There is the Nuja Frida Tonto.
I've been waiting to hear you try to pronounce that.
Which is a chicken nugget, which lets you breathe fire for a short amount of time.
I thought it was like the curry dish, like in Smash Brothers.
I thought it was a little chicken nugget.
I always thought it was the curry dish.
No, that's not. I don't know. I don't actually know what the words that it has are, so maybe it is.
I'm looking it up.
I'm looking at a picture of it, and it looks like a McDonald's chicken nugget.
Yeah, it does kind of. It is. This is what it's supposed to actually be.
Okay, what is it?
I'm sending you a picture of it. It looks like a pasta dish, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a chicken nugget.
Okay, the chicken nugget.
There's the Orlogian, which is a watch that freezes enemies. Very Castlevania reminiscent. There's my favorite item in the game, which is the vacuum, which just sucks all of the XP gems on the stage to you. There is the Rosary, destroys all on-screen enemies. The Floor Chicken, which restores 30 HP in another Castlevania reference.
Yep.
The gilded clover attracts all the gold on the ground. There's a little clover that gives you higher luck. Luck increases how many items that you see whenever you get your upgrade options. And then a bunch of other hidden and health items that I don't want to spoil or spend a lot of time going over because several of them are just gives you some health and does blank. But there are in-stage power-ups. Yeah, it doesn't look anything like a chicken nugget. It's just, it looks tasty, but I don't know what that is.
Apparently, it's named after spreadable pork sausage.
I see. Spreadable pork sausage is a very dystopian name for something. That sounds terrifying, but
Right?
also probably delicious. Let's talk characters, because at the time of writing, Vampire Survivors has a staggering 57 playable characters, each with different stats and many with different abilities and hidden abilities.
And at least one with randomized stats.
And we could spend 2 episodes going in detail on every character in Vampire Survivors, because I'm pretty sure we've both played at least all of them at least once.
Yes.
But we don't have time.
Right.
So I figured
there isn't enough time in reality.
No. I figured we would just kind of pick our favorite characters that we can just, sort of go through, talk about, and decide, just talk about the ones that we enjoy. I want to talk about my first love, which is Poe,
The garlic guy.
The garlic man. Yes.
Yes. Old man.
And garlic was previously my favorite weapon in the game because it creates a destructive force field around you.
Yeah.
And so Poe...
It is possibly still my favorite weapon in the game, despite the fact there are better weapons now.
There definitely are. Poe, specifically, starts with 30% less health and 25% higher magnet ability, which increases how far away things are attracted to you. And if you combine those with the attract orb power-up, you can eventually get to where you can stand in the middle of the screen and suck up every gem that possibly comes up.
And if you have also evolved your garlic enough, then enemies are just dying as they walk into you.
Yes. And it's difficult to get there because the garlic is a little weak.
Yeah.
But it's very satisfying.
But if you couple it with a handful of powerful weapons, especially the more passive, non-directional weapons like the Holy Book or the little laser, the little diamond that shoots lasers, the bouncy lasers.
Yes.
If you get a couple of those and you also power them up, then you can just stand still and just let the game play itself.
Yeah. After I kind of tired of Poe, I moved on to Mortasio, who is a skeleton man. And I played him initially because he was a skeleton man.
Right. I know how you feel about skeleton men.
I do enjoy skeletons. This is very true.
Yes.
But Mortasio, in addition to being a skeleton, has a little halo, so you know for sure he's dead. But he also gets an additional projectile every 20 levels up to a maximum of +3. And this is still kind of one of my favorite builds is projectile-heavy builds. Picking up weapons that fire lots of projectiles and taking characters that get additional projectiles and then getting the duplication ring that gives me even more projectiles on top of that, so that the screen is just utterly filled with huge amounts of shit at all times. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is very often how I still play. So I still play Mortasio a bit. I do still enjoy him.
Now you've gotten the upgraded relic for him, right?
I have in my main game, but I'm now replaying the game on Switch. So I've not done it on Switch. And then finally, my latest favorite from the second DLC pack, I think, is Minya Moonspell, who is a DLC character. Is it the first one? Okay.
Yeah.
Legacy of the Moonspell was the first one.
Yes.
And Minya starts with 20%, minus 20% health, plus 10% might, minus 10% cooldown, plus 10% luck, and plus 8 banish. But Minya has a very special ability.
Yes.
Minya will enter a boosted state after defeating a specific amount of enemies. And when you're in this triggered state, all enemies are erased from the screen with the effects of a rosary.
Yeah.
You gain level 1 of the 108 Bocce weapon, which is only active during your boost. And while you're in this state, you cannot be damaged. You gain 200% might,
Yep.
minus 20% cooldown, 300% total movement speed.
Yeah.
And it remains active for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
60 in-game seconds if you're playing hurry mode. And so playing with Minya means that you're in this cycle of back and forth entering and exiting this boost and just annihilating stuff. And eventually you can unlock Megalo Minya Moonspell.
Yeah.
Where you are
always in boost mode.
Always boosted. And this is one of the things that I really love about Vampire Survivors. And this is why they can have 57 characters that are all fun. Yeah. And this is why they can release constant content all the time. And it's fine. And it's something we haven't spoken about. And it's that the game is broken.
Yeah, it does not even pretend to be balanced.
It was broken from the get-go.
Yeah, and it's broken in your favor, by the way.
Yes. It is a game that is sitting around patiently waiting for you to figure out how to break it. And I do think it's an important moment in Vampire Survivors, that first time that you are playing a game and you go, oh, I think if I do this and this, I'll just put out crazy damage. It'll just kind of break the game. And it works.
And the game leans into it, too. And I don't know how much we want to spoil, but the game very much acknowledges that it expects to be broken and rewards you for breaking it.
Yes. And this is something that has kind of been more evident over the course of Vampire Survivors existing. And I wonder, because we don't really know, or at least not that I found in interviews, what Luca Galante, when he made the game, did he expect it to be broken? Or was he expecting something to be relatively balanced? But it seemed pretty quickly that the game was and is broken. People enjoy that brokenness, and there's no competitive element with other players, so you might as well let it be broken.
Right.
And
I wish more games would embrace that, because sometimes I really just enjoy being grossly overpowered, and I also enjoy, glitches and getting out of bounds and stuff like that.
Yes.
And this is the kind of game that just rewards all of that. And I appreciate that.
It's that satisfaction of finding something completely busted in an RPG.
Right.
And enjoying that, but it's that discovery over and over and over and over again.
Right. The whole game is built around that.
And then sometimes the game just hands you that as a reward. Yes. So Megalo Minya Moonspell, in your head, you're like, why would I ever play regular Minya Moonspell? And that's a valid question, but the answer is that it's just fun. It's a different kind of fun playing as Megalo Minya, who is always in a boosted state, and thus just annihilates everything. Plus, Megalo Minya is only unlocked by defeating 100,000 enemies in a single run with Minya.
Which
and then you have to spend
you just have to get the right weapon so that you can just sit still and then walk away.
But then you have to spend 50,000 gold to purchase Megalo Minya.
Which is also easier to get than you might think if you can find the way to do it.
And so this is what I love so much about this game. And this is something that I think that all three of my favorite characters exemplify, which is early on, I was breaking the game with Poe. I was trying to figure out, because what was happening is I was saying, hey, I keep running into people and killing myself. What's the fix? Well, the fix is to not move.
Right.
Well, if I play Poe and I do a little bit of running around when the level's easy in the early, because we didn't even mention this, every level is timed to be 30 minutes long.
Right. And it gets harder every minute.
Yes, because again, the waves of enemies are based on the time that has progressed.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, well, how can I not move? Because that's how I'm getting killed, is shit's going on and I'm walking into enemies. And so I broke the game by figuring out how to power up Poe in such a way that I could just stand there.
Yeah, you just have to find the right weapons and then power them up fast enough that by the time the hard waves start showing up, you're already powered up.
And then with Mortasio, I wanted to break the game again. I was like, well, I like projectiles. They work really good, but I can't get enough of them, and they're too small. So how can I break the game in such a way that my projectiles, there's so many, and they're so big that they annihilate everything instantly. And then you do. And the game is expecting this curve from you. It wants you to do this.
Right. It encourages it.
And then it hands
the frame rate doesn't encourage it.
No. Well, the Unity engine thankfully fixed a lot of the frame rate. But and then you get characters like Minya Moonspell. And Minya Moonspell was interesting for me because I would experiment with Minya.
Yeah.
Because I would show up in a level and be like, all right, well, I don't need to be very strong, because as long as I can kill enough enemies to enter a boosted state, then I can usually get by. So I used Minya to test out different builds to find ways to further break the game, which the game expects you to do. It sets you up to do it.
I'm looking through the notes here, and I realized that we did not mention any of the stage names at all. And
we've not yet. No,
I do want to mention that if you're looking to make money, the best place to do it is in the Bone Zone.
Yes,
which is a name of a place and not a state of mind, which is what I was always told it was.
Yes. So there are multiple stages in the game. There, you start off in the Mad Forest, then you go to the Inlaid Library, which is my personal favorite stage.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Then you go to the Dairy Plant. Things start getting weird, and it has descriptions.
Now, the Dairy Plant, I would say, is the wall. Once you get past the Dairy Plant, that's when everything starts to click. Up until that point,
you've fully broken it. Yeah,
it feels pretty basic, and the Dairy Plant specifically feels too hard. But once you can get past that wall, everything falls into place.
Yes. And the Dairy Plant is also the first hint, if you haven't reached it yet, that the game is not serious.
Right, yeah.
Because you're like, all right, Mad Forest, Inlaid Library. Why am I in a fucking dairy plant? And it has a description. The birthplace of milk magic churns with chaos. Here, it's not just blood that curdles. A secret map awaits the hero brave enough to enter this overthrown factory. So it starts to get goofy with shit.
Yes.
And after that, it's stages 4 and 5 are Gallo Tower and then Capella Magna, and then you get into bonus stages. And there's a bunch of different bonus stages of different types that do different things differently.
Yes.
And I don't know that we want to spoil all of them. The Bone Zone is a pretty fun one.
Yeah. It's a hard one, but if you can get yourself broken in there, you can make a ludicrous amount of money very quickly.
Yeah. We've talked about your characters.
I didn't talk about my characters, Saturn. Right? So I go back and forth between wanting to use the grossly overpowered characters like Queen Sigma or Megalomania, or Genevieve, and then also wanting to use the dumbest not overpowered characters
like the Panda Bear.
No, I hate the Panda Bear.
What? No, I love him. He's got the cherry bomb.
No, I hate all the characters that come with unupgradable weapons. Fuck all of them.
You can upgrade it, you just can't evolve it, Saturn.
Yeah, no.
So wait a minute. You've never played... Well, I'm sure you've played with him, but you don't play with Sir Ambrojo?
I don't like him, no.
He has a weapon called La Roba.
Egg. Yeah.
Yes, and it shoots furniture.
Yes.
But if you upgrade the size of projectiles to the max... Then the whole screen is just constantly ridiculous. Covered in furniture. It's hilarious.
It's dumb as hell. It is fun. I'll go for like the witch with the cats. I hate that weapon, but I still will like play as her just to see if I can do it.
I like the cats because she shoots cats, but if a black and a white cat bump each other, they get into this cat fight.
Yes,
and it's crazy strong.
Yeah. Also, Conchetta and Christine have terrible weapons. And I love it. I love to start as that underpowered, terrible weapon just to see if I can survive.
Yeah. And then a lot of characters like, I think Christine, people with items that are difficult to start the level with will usually start with a temporary bonus that helps them get off the ground.
Yeah, they get a bonus level. They get an immediate level up so that they can pick a different weapon to go along with that.
That's not useless.
Yeah. That one, and I think Gallo and Devano are the same way.
Yeah.
But lately I keep playing with Pugnala, who is the obvious Bayonetta character, who has the twin guns and the Bayonetta hairstyle. And if you look at their different character outfits, it is clearly Bayonetta.
Absolutely.
But I do like the weapons that you have to have multiple things in order to upgrade them. It's not just weapon and accessory equals upgrade. You have to do some weird convoluted thing. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk weapons and passive items because we already kind of are.
Yeah.
There are lots and lots and lots of weapons and passive items, so we're not going to cover all of them.
Right.
But again, here are some of our favorites. I've talked about Garlic and its evolved form, the Soul Eater, just because it's so easy and lazy. I love the Attract Orb. I never, ever don't have the Attract Orb.
Yeah.
I 100% of the time take it, which means I almost 100% of the time take the Santa Water because it evos with Attract Orb. So if I'm going to take the Attract Orb, I'm going to take what evolves with it.
But it's a good weapon, too.
I have the Gadiamari, which is the cat, on my list of favorite weapons. I love the cat. It's great, and it meows, and it's awesome. And when you evolve it, it turns into eyeballs. Who doesn't like this? This is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the cats, but I'll still try to use it regularly.
I also really enjoy the King Bible in conjunction with the garlic because it gives you like this double combo. Sort of force field around you.
Yeah,
and I enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah.
All the projectiles are pretty interchangeable for me. Things like the cross, the axe, the magic wand, the fire wand, etc., etc.
I do not see those as interchangeable. They're ones that I prefer to others.
Oh, really? Well, what are your favorites?
One, most of the ones that you already mentioned are also my favorites. But I do really like the cross because one, you can dodge it when it comes back at you because it's a cross boomerang, just like in Castlevania. And if you dodge it when it comes back at you, it hits everybody behind you, which adds one extra element of ability versus the other projectiles. And it upgrades to that ridiculous sword that just flies all over the screen.
Yes.
Whereas the knife and the axe, I pretty much ignore. I will not take them unless I have to. Same with the whip. Not a big fan of the whip. But things like the magic wand, which basically home in on enemies, I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
But no, it's mostly the same weapons that you choose would be the ones that I go with. And also always the Clock Lancet and the Laurel.
Clock Lance? Really?
Yeah, just so I can upgrade them with the rings.
I don't usually bother with all that because I hate the Clock Lance so much.
Oh, yeah, I always get the Clock Lancet and the Laurel, and then I get the rings so that I can get the stupid overpowered weapons.
So, there are a lot of unlockables in this game. A lot of them are in the form of relics, which you find in stages that unlock various things. We're not going to cover all of them because, again, this game is so action-fucking-packed with so much crap in it that there's just no way we can cover all the items and stuff.
It's just an incredibly dense game, and a lot of the fun of the game is finding these things. So we don't want to give you everything.
You can unlock character skins, inverse modes, hyper and hurry modes that kind of alter how the time progresses throughout the stage. But probably the biggest unlocks, so in kind of the Vampire Survivors arc, once you hit about the dairy plant, maybe before, maybe after, you start to realize how to break the game.
Right.
And then, at least for me, I'd reached a point where I was like, all right, I've kind of figured out my groove for how I want to break the game and how I want to do things that are ridiculous. And, now that's kind of wearing thin on me. And then you start to unlock Arcanas.
Yes.
Which is a modifier system in the game. So Arcanas are these cards that you unlock that you can combine that do wild shit.
Yeah.
Some of them are kind of more benign, but other ones wildly modify things. Like there is one that makes it so that you stop gaining XP gems entirely, but every time you touch an XP gem, it turns into an exploding projectile that shoots across the screen.
Yeah.
Absolutely weird shit. And this is the game. At this point, it's kind of been nudging you, and then the game just goes, you need to break some shit. If you're not breaking shit by now, here's some tools to break some shit in a manner you've never dreamed of.
Yeah. What are the Arcanas that you always try to get?
Oh, a lot of it depends on the character. I really like, there is one that I always do for Queen Sigma that basically makes her sword better. I really like the Waltz of Pearls, which is the one that gives projectiles additional bounces.
Oh, yeah,
I also really like the one, because we didn't even talk about the companion weapons, which are, there's 2 birds and 2 guns. And if you can get both guns or both birds and then an additional item, they will combine into one big mega item.
Right.
But there's also an Arcana you can pick up that gives them an additional companion item whenever you pick one of them up. And so if I'm going for the birds, which are Peach One and Ebony Wings, then I will pick that one up.
Doesn't it help some other items as well in addition to those?
I think it does. I don't remember though.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which ones it is. I usually only get that one if I happen to have the guns or the birds.
There's also the one that every 2 minutes attracts every item in the stage to you.
That's the one I always go for first.
Yeah, that one's really useful if you're like, oh, I want to get some of these in-stage items, because eventually you start finding in-stage power-ups that you can only get in the stage.
Yeah, and I always get all of them.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't. I did them to get the unlocks and stuff, and then I was like, nah, I'm not going to bother those anymore. Yeah, that's
I always get them all, and even if I don't go for those weapons, after I've filled out my inventory, because it lets you get 6 weapons and 6 accessories. But after you've gotten your 6 accessories, you can then grab all the accessories that are on the map, and so then you have more than 6. And the same with weapons. If there are weapons on the map, you can get your 6 and then grab more. Or there is a chance that you will get the candy box, which lets you get an additional weapon on top of the ones you already have. So you can use that to also get more weapons than you should have.
It also eventually, I don't remember which item it is, but it eventually lets you get an item that lets you re-pick a weapon.
I don't remember that.
At some point, I believe. Or maybe I'm just thinking of the candy box that gives you an additional.
Yeah.
I swear there's one that lets you change, but I'm probably just thinking about the because there's multiple candy boxes.
There's the candy box and the Super Candy Box 2 Turbo.
Yeah. Which is another point. This game is packed to the brim with constant video game references.
Correct, yeah.
Obviously, lots and lots and lots of Castlevania, but there's also little things here and there, kind of all over the place. I don't know what else we can say other than just listing items in the game, but I do think it's worth talking about, and we kind of already mentioned a little bit, is the game's sort of retro roots. And the game's, whether it was a big design decision or something that Galante just sort of happened upon, the game is definitely a Castlevania parody, satire, homage, one of those words. One of those loving comedic words, I do.
Even if it didn't intend to be, because he had mentioned that wasn't his goal.
Yeah, it was just kind of a casual choice.
It still became kind of a love letter to Castlevania.
Yeah.
If not from the author, then definitely from the community over the time that it's been
for
around.
Sure.
And I am shocked that Konami approached Dead Cells for a crossover instead of Vampire Survivors.
Yes!
I am insulted, Konami. Where is my Castlevania map in Vampire Survivors?
This game, and I hate that this is in my retro roots category, but it's affordable. It has a respectable DLC release model and huge amounts of free features. They just added local co-op out of nowhere entirely, and it works great. I've played it. It's super fun.
Nice. And when you think about, like we had said earlier, that it feels like an arcade game. Arcade games cost us $0.25, and if you wanted to continue, it was another $0.25, and you would just keep pumping quarters into it. And this game is what, $5?
It is. And I looked
then
this up.
$3 for each DLC, I think.
$4.99 for the game. $1.99 for each DLC, which there are currently 2, and $2.99 for the soundtrack. But you can get the game and the soundtrack for $2.39.
There you go. So, wait, that's less than the game itself.
Yes, it is less than the game itself.
Are you sure it's not giving you a discount because you already own one?
It's giving me a discount because I already own one.
So, either way, it's cheap. You can get the game and its expansions for about $10, give or take.
Yeah.
Which is, a little more than I might have put into a random arcade game, but to have it at home and to have infinite use of it, it does not feel obscene. In fact, it feels incredibly generous compared to the rest of the industry right now.
I looked it up. The bundle of the game and both expansions is currently $7.62.
Dirt cheap.
Insanely cheap.
Yeah.
Let's talk reception. This game was pretty instantly wildly successful and extremely well received.
Yes.
It was nominated for Best Early Access launch at the Golden Joysticks. It won the Breakthrough Award, even though it's not a Breakthrough clone, so I don't really know what that's about. That was a joke. I think it means indies breaking into the scene. Won a Golden Joystick, or no, that was that was Golden Joysticks.
Yeah. It was nominated for Game Award.
Game Awards nominated it and then gave it to something else because they're fucking wrong.
Yeah, they're fucking hacks.
It's got Game Developers Choice Awards. It was Honorable Mention Game of the Year, nominated for Best Debut, Honorable Mention for Best Design. It won Best Game from the British Academy Games Awards.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those like sleeper hits.
It
nobody
felt
expected.
like it. And it feels like one of those games where it's just so goddamn fun.
Yeah.
It's just such a pure expression of fun and enjoyment and dopamine for $7.
Yeah, and I really think that it caught a lot of the industry off guard.
I think it did
do
too.
not
And I think a
think they
lot
were
of people
prepared for it.
didn't bother with it because it looks like this rinky-dink little piece of junk game, and it does look like that.
And as much as I will give every corporation shit for being terrible, horrible entities, which they are, I will give Microsoft some credit for having noticed this game and made the effort to get it on Game Pass and on Xbox as quickly as they could when they did see it blowing up.
Yeah,
That was a smart move from that giant, greedy mega corporation.
As far as reviews, they're kind of weird because some of these reviews are from the early access release of the game. IGN gave it a 7 out of 10 and an 8 out of 10, respectively. I believe the 8 out of 10 is the 1.0 review. Eurogamer recommended it. Game Informer gave it a 9.75 out of 10. Nintendo Life gave the Switch release, which is the latest release, so one of the most, the most feature-rich one so far, a 9 out of 10. PC Gamer gave it an 87 out of 100. The mobile port got a 4.5 out of 5 from Touch Arcade.
And also, the mobile port is free.
Yeah, it's no dollars.
Yeah, you just play it. It's got some ads every now and then, and you can use the ads to your advantage if you want to get a bonus revive. I think that's what you get out of it. So there is that option. You do have to pay if you want the DLC, but that's it.
Yeah. But the DLC, honestly, is a good amount of content, and it's $2.
Yes. I struggle to complain about that.
And this is kind of us transitioning into final thoughts here. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about it since Vampire Survivors came out. Every time they update it, I think about it. Mm-hmm. And I think Vampire Survivors is going to go down historically as one of my top favorite games of all time. Without even really question. It just kind of is there. If I'm sitting down to play something and I'm not sure what it is, I'm going back to Vampire Survivors. Every single time I've played it, it's been fun. Even the frustrating moments where I'm trying to get a specific build and I die early because I messed up, it's still just so damn fun. You still want to
go right back into it.
Yeah, it is the most eminently playable and compelling game I've played in a decade. Easy.
It's right up there with Tetris or SimCity or something that I can just mindlessly play every now and then.
Yeah, I don't think I could possibly recommend it enough, and not just because it's $7 for all of it.
Though that helps.
That's the regular price.
Right.
If this game was $30, I would still be recommending it as much.
Yeah.
It has the most content for $7. I think I would be shocked if someone could say, "Oh, Justin, this game has more content for $7." I don't believe it's out there.
Right.
Just the amount of things and
let's clarify amount of content that is worth playing.
Yes.
For $7.
Yes. Let's be very clear. It's a blast. I can see guys playing it right this very moment. So yeah, I extreme recommendation from me. I did play co-op with my wife because I was curious of a non-gamer perspective. I'm always curious about that from her.
Yeah. And
she played one round we played 2 rounds and she goes, "Yeah, that was pretty fun. I can see why people would like that," which is a glowing endorsement from her. Usually, her endorsement sounds like, "I don't know what the fuck was happening," the whole time.
Which is also an accurate description of Vampire Survivors, for the record.
I'll say this: if you're on the fence about it, one, just go buy it. Really, buy it.
If you're even close to the fence, then buy it. It's cheap, or download it on your phone if you don't want to pay for it,
or play the itch demo. But if you're on the fence, I'll tell you this: looking at someone playing it, it's just confused. You won't know what's happening.
Right.
Because this is what I think happened. I think the game came out. I think it caught the industry off guard. I think people went like me and looked at it and were like, "What the fuck is this shit? Oh, it looks kind of weird. I don't know what the fuck is happening," and then closed it. It's like looking at it. It looks like some shitty free-to-play mobile junk.
Right.
but it's not.
No.
It's just not.
It kind of is.
But in a good way.
Yeah, it takes the better elements of these free to play and gacha games and dopamine simulators.
Yeah.
And
doesn't charge you money for all of it.
Right, exactly. It gives them to you at a reasonable cost.
It does make me wonder how many games out there could be as good dopamine simulators if they would just detangle themselves from all their free to play bullshit.
Yeah.
And the answer
wouldn't that be nice to know?
Answer is probably a lot.
Yeah.
And I think this is how I'm going to tie it all together and justify us doing an episode on a modern game that is really in no way retro. And it is that this game makes me feel like what so many free-to-play mobile experiences could have been if they just had literally any amount of integrity.
And my justification is we don't need justification.
It's our show, all right? Jeez. Look, if you want to tell us how to run our show, then you can go to patreon.com/Retro Warriors and tell us how to run our show. And while you're there, you can give us some money and get Talking Wizards and read it. This is my most aggressive pitch ever. You get all these cool things at our Patreon.
You get all these cool things, you jerk.
For less than the cost of Vampire Survivors, you can get Talking Wizards and uncut early access to these episodes. Don't you want that? For less than you could buy Vampire Survivors and the DLC and get like several hours of additional Retro Warriors content and only spend like $11.
You know, your pitch almost sounded like one of those infomercials about sending money to kids overseas.
For only a nickel a day.
Yeah.
We do want to thank the following patrons for their kind donations, starting with Will and Angie.
And why is Vampire Survivors so hard? Am I just bad at game?
We're all bad at game.
Yeah, we are all bad at game.
But it gets easier the more you play. Todd Bass.
The Coffee Samurai.
Poncho Man Randy Savage.
Norman.
Oh, no. It looks like Unicode ate this one.
Oh,
Kai
no.
Ove Lingar. It's messed up. It got messed up. Kai, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Joystick Cowboy.
Eric Caller.
And David Svihel.
You did it.
I didn't. I failed, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dave.
Are all the patrons who give us some of their money every month. And you could also be one of those people. If you wanted to, we won't stop you. Give us money.
I might.
No, stop, Saturn. Stop stopping people.
I won't stop you.
Do stay tuned after the ending theme. Our producer Guy is going to be here to talk to us about
how long we are, probably.
And how they have a venomous sting.
It's true.
Just so hopefully he's prepared with those platypus facts. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together. Hi, welcome to the after party with our producer, Guy. Hi, Guy.
Hey.
What do you tell us about platypuses?
They're mammals. They have a cloaca.
I believe they're marsupials, aren't they?
Marsupials are mammals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, marsupials have pouches. That's what it is. I don't think they're marsupials. Did you know that their fur glows under UV light?
Does it?
Yeah, and we don't know why. It's really fucking weird.
Because of all the semen.
It's because of all the semen.
That makes sense.
Guy, what do you got for us for the after party?
Well, right now I'm quitting Vampire Survivors.
No, don't quit.
Well,
I've been playing throughout the entire episode.
I'm always playing Vampire Survivors when we record.
Well, I was playing Magic during the episode, so I missed part of it. So whatever.
Yeah.
They're hard Magic games. So yeah, I don't know. I have like one note.
And it is.
It's a reverse shmup because you are the origin of the bullets. It is a bullet hell that you spawn the bullets. That is where that came from.
But in regular shmups, you also spawn bullets.
Well, right. But like you're not like dodging like a bullet hell in it.
I appreciate you trying to make me not sound like a belligerent dork.
I wish you would just accept it. It's like accepting the DM's ruling, right? Like just you got a yes, buddy. Go with it.
Yeah, just quit fighting it. How much Vampire Survivors have you have you played through it, or like where are you at in it? Did you put it down, or?
I've played a good amount, I would say. I don't know. Like I was just playing in the Bone Zone.
Yeah.
So
people love being in the Bone Zone.
It's the first time I've played in the Bone Zone that I think.
Oh.
I haven't quite unlocked the I think there's a area before that I haven't unlocked. I definitely don't have all the characters. I didn't know characters could be upgraded. Like there were super versions of characters. So
some, really, there's Megalomania. Queen Sigma is kind of one of the super. There's a few like super characters that are like just fully broken out of the gate.
Right.
Nice.
But yeah, there's a few of those. And Queen Sigma is the one you get for completing the original unlock screen. You get everything on the unlock screen as it originally existed, and then you get her.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And she's just fully busted, and her upgrade like summons black holes.
Yeah.
And you're like, nothing can defeat me. It's just
Queen Sigma is the I want to win this stage option.
Yeah, I'm still in the middle of discovering new weapons and new combos and shit. So
nice.
Oh, that's fun. That's the place to be.
Yeah, that's when it's at peak fun, is when you've figured out that there are weird things to find, but you haven't found them all yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel like the game is working up towards some kind of narrative we don't want to spoil some of the stuff, but there's a lot of weird things that feel like they're setting up some sort of meta narrative.
Right.
But then there isn't one, you know? And so you're left thinking, like, is this just a bizarre thing they put in here for funsies? Or is this trying to, like, create some sort of meta-narrative? Or did they just want to set up a meta-narrative, didn't know what it was, put it in now, and they're going to figure out what it is later? Like, both are possible.
Right.
You know?
And then one of the things that they just dropped in there with no explanation, they went back to several patches later and reintroduced, and I was like, oh, are we going back to no, we're still ignoring it? All right. Okay.
I have played it on both iOS and PC and Xbox.
Yeah.
And I linked those.
You said both, and that's three things.
I linked that. I bundled those together.
Oh, okay.
As a
PC,
single
Xbox.
thing because they're Game Pass and they're synchronized.
Microsoft PC,
saves
Xbox.
the save file, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
So I would say that they're both about equally progressed as well, because like the iOS version, I'll play it like a hockey game, right? Like between periods or during commercial breaks and shit.
Yeah.
Wait.
Okay.
What do they do during commercial? They stop playing the sport for commercial breaks?
Yeah.
Aren't those just like extra timeouts? Like, what do they do?
Mostly they spend it as the players. They spend it as a timeout. Yeah. The arena has like entertainment packages. Like sometimes it's advertisements and shit. Yeah.
I guess it makes sense, but it never occurred to me that they have to stop during commercials so that like the stuff doesn't happen, people don't get to see it. I don't know why that never occurred to me in my life, but all right. I just imagine them all milling about.
Like I've seen enough of the arena media packages that it's not new to me, so I'll just sit there and play a game on my phone for a couple minutes. And this is perfect for that.
What is an arena media package?
Well, like they do like baseball games, they do like a dot race, right? I don't know if you've ever been to a baseball game.
Oh, yeah, where they come out and they do little shit, or they have like a puppy parade or something.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that, or they're advertising things that are coming up or promotions they've got in the store.
Yeah, I've never heard it called a media package.
Well, if you go to a bunch of games, it's like the same thing over and over again. So
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess there's only so many, and they have the same sponsors and shit. So it's because I remember going to Rangers games as a kid, and there was the dot race. I do remember the dot race.
I have never heard of whatever this is.
All right, so you've got these dots,
Okay.
And you want to know which one's going to be the fastest dot. And then they all race each other, and then you know which dot was the fastest. Maybe it was the yellow one.
Like a dot on a piece of paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of dot.
It's like they're like the different teams have different activities and different sports, right? So like in for the Rangers, it is a dot race, and it's like a red dot, a green dot, and a blue dot.
Where are they racing?
On the video board.
Yeah, they just show you a video of dots moving around and call it a race.
Yeah. And
It's riveting stuff.
they used
So
to
it's
give
a
out,
screensaver.
yeah. They used to give out a piece of paper. Somebody calls it, I guess. You know, like it's a real race. And they used to give out like a piece of paper with the colored dot on it. And if your dot won, then you get like a free water or Dr. Pepper or something.
Yeah, $37 value.
Your piece of paper was correct. We will allow you water.
Yeah.
I don't know how many sports stadiums you've been to, but that's totally accurate.
You may not dehydrate today, sir.
Do you
But,
think
like,
the person calling the race, like, they know who's going to win, or do they keep them in the dark?
I don't know. That's a good
Because, like,
question.
the person that loads up the video for that game knows which they're like, this is the red dot wins race.
Like, do you
they
think
know
the
which
wrestling announcers ahead of time know the score?
I assume so.
I think the wrestling announcers have I think the wrestling announcers have a general idea of, like, what's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
then
do.
It's always been
I
my-
would assume it's a similar situation. It's probably pre-scripted unless they have like a rando button, right?
Well, I know it's prescriptive, but I'm saying, like, the person calling the race, do you think that they, like... Because they narrate the race.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just like 3 different races and it's the same like video that they show.
That's got to be the worst
God.
part of that
Yeah, I would
sports
feel so bad for
commentator's
that guy.
life. Is where he's
Well,
like,
no, I'm saying maybe he's recorded that and it's like the video itself. It's
oh,
not
he's just up
actually
there smoking a
dude doing it
cigarette.
live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the entertainment packages
is my
at I know
purpose?
we've derailed all of it. You call it dot races. Oh my god.
But like,
What-
the Pirates, they have like dudes in costumes that run around.
hold on, I'm
the
sorry.
outfield.
Are Pirates? What sport is this?
Oh, it's baseball still.
Baseball?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So their little race is like people in costumes, like they're like little bean costumes. I don't know. You have to look it up. But they run around and whoever crosses home plate, like, you know, people get a prize or whatnot.
Okay. Yeah. I remember being a kid and I went to a Rangers game and it was like bobblehead day. And I got a bobblehead of a guy that I didn't know.
Nice.
And so that was cool.
Yeah, it seems like all their giveaway days, the stars, are like on like Mondays and Tuesdays this year. They're like, no, you have to come to a game nobody wants to come to.
Are those games people don't want to go to?
Yeah, because they're like a weeknight.
People got work.
Oh,
the
okay.
next
Yeah, I
day.
guess that makes sense. Yeah. So what do they give away these days? Has it gotten equally shitty with the rest of everything in the world? Like, are they giving away, like, here's a pencil? Like, what do you get now?
No, you still get bobbleheads sometimes. You get hats.
Is it while supplies last, or do they have enough for all the seats?
No, it's usually supplies last. Like, it's like bobbleheads are like, they do like 15,000, I think.
They know how many fucking people can fit in the stadium. They know how many bobbleheads to make. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
Yeah. They also have like
I'm sorry.
junior hats, and so like the first 5,000 kids that show up get one. Sometimes.
Specifically the children. So the 5,001st kid is just like, sorry, kid, we forgot how many seats were in the stadium.
Yeah, sucks to be you.
Sucks
Get
to
here
be
earlier.
you.
Tell your parents, bye, kid.
Tell your parents. All right, so now that I've fully interrupted you to have you explain sports to us again for the umpteenth time, you were saying about Vampire Survivors.
It's a good game, bye.
It is a good game. Excellent. I love this.
I didn't realize that they actually gave away things at sports games. I thought that was like something from the 70s that just got
Well, it
referenced
was
or
a thing then too, I'm sure. but
Right. I
At
just
least
assumed that people had stopped at some point.
I assumed that too, but at least as recent as I was a kid, I remember we only ever went to Rangers games. We went to baseball games, and I didn't like baseball or understand baseball, but I got to eat nachos for dinner whenever we went to the baseball game, and so I liked going. And then at the end, they shot fireworks, that was cool.
I've never been to a professional sports game. I've been to high school sports games when I was in the band, and I hated it.
Yeah,
My
I was gonna
dad.
say you should go, but you shouldn't. So
No,
Yeah.
I remember some Rangers games. I'd be there with my dad, and he's a TV shouter. He is a person whose mood is dictated by how his team did,
Yeah.
and we would be at the game, and I'm sitting there eating my nachos, playing my Game Boy, whatever. Like, I don't give a shit. I'm just waiting to see fireworks at the end of this damn game. And if the Rangers were doing bad enough, he would get so upset that he would make us leave before the game was over. He'd be like pissed off, cussing out the Rangers, and be like, "Let's get out of here. This sucks. They're losing." And I'm like, "But the fireworks and my nachos." And he'd make me go home. I remember going home early from a game and being like devastated that I wanted to see the fireworks.
My dad never cared at all about any sports when I was a kid. Like, he would watch the Cowboys games if he happened to be at home that day, but usually only if nobody else was watching TV. Like, if it was Thanksgiving, he would watch that Cowboys game because it could do it with the family. But otherwise, he just didn't care about sports. And then once he was forced to retire, suddenly he became a huge fan of the Cowboys and the Rangers, and a minor fan of the Mavericks and the Stars. And one time I went over there and he was watching the Mavericks, and he says, "You know, I don't even know how basketball works. I just really want them to win." Okay.
yeah, that's how teams work, man.
Right?
Now, basketball in particular is pretty easy to figure out. There's a big hoop, and you want to throw the ball into it. You know, I feel like that one's pretty intuitive.
I think his thing was he didn't know what moves were illegal were his thing. He didn't know when somebody was, doing something they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
He was a little confused by that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like baseball and football are the hardest to look at and know what the fuck's happening.
Yeah, football I still don't understand. Baseball I've always had. I think it's because of cartoons though that I knew how baseball was.
I watched a lot of Looney Tunes growing up, and I still never understood baseball. And I remember being almost an adult before realizing that they get a point when they cross home plate.
Right.
Because there's so much shit going on. There's all these bases everywhere, and everyone's
Did
excited.
you not have to play kickball as a kid?
No. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't remember. I think I did. I think I played it at church sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Like third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, they made us play kickball in PE for a little while.
I remember playing kickball. I played t-ball when I was in like kindergarten.
Oh.
But I think I just always assumed that, like, in air quotes, real baseball had more rules and more points and stuff.
Nah.
Because there's so much shit happening.
Not really.
No, it's like the same thing. I mean, I know you know that now, but
Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember I'd see football and be like, all right, they want to run the ball to the thing, and then at some point the other team gets tries, but then now they're kicking it into this big U, and then I don't know, and then
Football still confuses me.
I learned football because I played NFL Blitz when that came out, and so that's when I learned how football works, was NFL Blitz. And it turns out a lot of those moves in that game are illegal.
What?
I know.
Yeah.
You can't just like choke slam somebody in the NFL. You're not allowed.
Next thing you're going to tell me is that Mega Man Soccer has unrealistic moves.
No, that one's completely realistic simulation soccer. Yeah, I checked.
That's
I
good.
checked.
That's good.
They checked that one with the International Soccer League. I don't know what it's called.
FIFA.
There you go. That's. Guys, should we just rename your segment to Justin and Saturn be embarrassing about sports?
maybe.
You think that's because I can always just feel you like brooding over there as we're like,
Oh man, no. Okay,
unable to figure basic shit out.
My kid. Yeah, well, I don't know. Y'all are like fucking 30, 40-year-old men. You should be able to figure basic shit out. But I'm not going to
I
shame
can definitely figure it out. I just don't wanna. You know,
I have no
it's the
interest.
same reason I don't figure out how fucking Survivor works. When do they vote them off the island? I don't know. When they upset someone, I have no idea.
I guess.
I've just never looked into it. I don't know. You know.
This is why.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My kids are going to a real school this year, and I'm glad.
Yeah?
Because they're in PE, and the part of their PE curriculum is like learn various sports. Like each of them are learning how to play like floor hockey or whatever.
They had us learn a lot of the major sports, but I didn't grasp any of it, and the coaches did not care whether or not I grasped any of it. They were like, well, did you look like you were participating? All right, you're done. You get off the field. Let the people who know what they're doing play.
Oh man, they get quizzes and shit. Like this school, like my daughter is in 6th grade, and she was like, she goes, Dad, can you help me with this physics problem? I'm supposed to find like delta V over delta T, but I don't know what the initial velocity was or what the initial time was. I'm like, you're in 6th grade, lady.
Right?
What the
that
fuck?
was high school shit.
Yeah, I don't know what any of that was happening.
Right.
I can tell you the chronology of every Ninja Turtle into their 30s. Well, I don't know what you just said. But if you have questions about Godzilla monsters, I'm your guy.
Yeah, so I'm excited for them that they're learning like a bunch of cool shit in the school that's gonna stretch their brains.
Guy, did you play sports?
On a team? No.
What? Did you play them off a team?
Okay, so there's like club sports where you sign up and you have like extracurricular kind of thing, right?
Yeah, like in school and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, never did that. Never played for my school team, but like I played sports in PE and with friends around the neighborhood.
Oh, how strange. I played sports.
I did not.
Which is probably even now more confusing to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, when you said on a team, no, I thought you were going to say that you soloed the team. Like there's a football team and you were by yourself, but you still won.
Bugs Bunny style, right?
Right.
I played Little League T-ball, and I played Little League soccer, and I played in a basketball league for my church, and I played in a bowling league.
Damn.
Which
I
was
played co-ed softball
fun.
in college and volleyball on like
that's
Sunday
something.
nights.
My highest score, I was in the bumper bowling league at Cowtown Bowling, and my highest score, because at the end of the league they give you a patch with your highest score on it, like the number.
It was 8.
And so they have all these different patches, and I remember bumper league. I got my highest score was a 75.
Oh man.
Was the high.
When I was 10, I had gone to visit my aunt in Houston, and I was staying with her for 2 or 3 weeks, and she was in a bowling league, and so bowling was very important in her life.
Right.
And so she took me and my brother out bowling almost every night while we were there, just because it was something that she knew that we could do as a group that would entertain us. And so she ended up buying us bowling balls and bowling shoes so that we wouldn't have to use the ones there. And I was getting pretty good at it for a 10-year-old. I was averaging like 140-ish, give or take.
Okay, respectable.
And then I finished growing up, and I didn't bowl for 15 years, and I went back to it. And it turns out that's an ability you need to practice.
It is. Yes. Yeah. Man, I haven't been bowling in so many years. We should all go bowling. I think we should also end this episode. Guy, thank you for producing the show. Thank you for being on the after party. It's been real fun with all our sports questions.
Guy, will you go bowling with us?
Yeah,
I'll
go bowling with us.
you.
Sweet.
We're
There's
gonna
like
end-
2 bowling alleys right next to my house.
We're going to end on this. Of all of the hockey mascots, which one do you think would win in a fight the most if they all fought in a big battle royale cage match?
Raptor?
The shark.
Oh, that's fair.
Is there a raptor?
No.
No, that's basketball.
That's basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that one because I saw it on the video today. Thank you for listening. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.